Gary and Barbie this last week, and we went to Yellowstone. How many have been to Yellowstone before? So it was a great time. We had never been. Well, Gary had been, and Barb have been, but we have never been. And so it was exciting for us to go. We rented an RV, and it was a lot of fun, and we had a great time with everybody. But when you come home after 7 days, you got to take care of stuff. Like, you eat too much, you got to lose some weight. Like, you got a lot of laundry, you got to do it, you got to clean up your house. And so we got back on Wednesday, worked on Thursday, had a lot of stuff to do, food bank around here. I come to recovery on Thursday night, and when I came home, Angie, I came to the door to, let's just say, stress. We came in, and we have a new dog, too. He's about 4 months old, and so we're potty training our dog. And so she says, yeah, good luck, thanks for that. So, Ben, I feel your pain over there. So we have this puppy, and so she says, okay, so his name's Dozer. Dozer peed in the kitchen, he peed on me, and he peed on our stairs. Our son and daughter are picking up our neighbor's poop for a job around the neighborhood. Their dog poop, not just poop in general. Their dog poop, they're picking up that. She says, Bodie came home with poop on the back of both of his arms and his back. I don't know what happened, but he rolled in it. The dryer is broken, and then I go out to mow the lawn, and my weed eater is broken. And it's like, I look at Angie and I say, I'm done. Let's go on vacation. Like, I'm back ready to hit the road. Like, let's just live in an RV the rest of our lives, because this is stressful. And that's a silly example, and we are facing different things, and you are facing different things that may just be incredibly stressful. We all go through them, so you're not alone. And when you go through stress times, what comes out of you? And that's what we're going to talk about today. What's in your heart is what comes out. We're going to talk about a healthy heart today. Jesus addresses it in Luke chapter 6 and verse 43. He says this, a good tree can't produce bad fruit. A bad tree can't produce good fruit. Verse 44, a tree is identified by its fruit. He's talking about us. So we are identified by our fruit. Figs are never gathered from thorn bushes, and grapes are never picked from bramble bushes. 45 says, a good person produces good things from the treasury of a good heart. Say that with me. Good heart. And an evil person produces evil things from the treasury of an evil heart. What you say flows from what's in your heart. Today, we want to ask you this question, and I want this to simmer all day, hopefully all week. How's your heart? How's your heart? And I mean deep down. I want you to really search what's going on, because if there is a lot of bitterness, if there's a lot of anger, if there's a lot of depression, anxiety, worry, then there may be an issue with your heart. What comes out in those stressful moments at work, when everything's piling up and the tasks are piling up, and no one's looking? Are you honorable in what you do? When no one's looking around at home, do you yell at your kids because you're stressed? I know oftentimes in our marriage and in our life, there's been stressful moments where we've argued, the one time we've argued in our own almost 19 years of marriage. When we argue or get frustrated, there's oftentimes that I don't like what comes out of me. She's shaking her head a little too much, I think. Vigorously. I don't like what comes out of my heart sometimes. I get defensive, I get angry, I fight battles I shouldn't fight, I argue. And I think we all have things in our heart. And Angie will often say, what's in your heart is what comes out. And there's a lot of truth to that. And so today, I want you to think about this. How's my heart? How's my heart? And we're going to go to Scripture today. And Scripture is the ultimate source of dealing with difficult issues. Your heart, dealing with any issue you have, it's found in the Word. And we're going to go to the Word first and foremost. But if you want to do some heart surgery and you want to do some work on yourself, I want to recommend 2 books for you. One is Healing the Orphan's Heart by Casey Treat, a fantastic book that changed my life, and also Soul Keeping by John Ortberg. These are 2 fabulous books on heart issues, soul issues, on how to take care of things that are going on the inside of you. Because we all need heart surgery. We all need to work on our heart. Matthew chapter 12, Jesus says it this way, for out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. A good man out of the good treasures of his heart brings forth good things. And an evil man out of the evil treasures brings forth evil things. So what's going on in your heart is incredibly important. So our day in the life today is about a lady by the name of Hannah, and our title today is Hannah's Heart. And we're going to hear about her story, and we're going to look at her heart, and maybe we can learn some things today from how she reacts in stressful moments. Now, Hannah is going through a storm. Many of us are going through some kind of storm, some kind of difficulty, some kind of physical trauma, some kind of emotional trauma, some kind of financial crisis. We're all going through one thing or another, and Hannah's going through a storm. And she is married to a guy by the name of Elkanah, and Elkanah has 2 wives. There's the first problem right there, right? Peninnah and Hannah. Now, Peninnah is able to have children. Hannah is not. That's her specific storm that she is facing. And for you ladies in here who have dealt with that and wanted to get pregnant and weren't able to, you know how difficult of a storm that is, how difficult of a time that is. And you may be able to identify with her specifically, but maybe not specifically. Maybe you are going through something else. And I want you to identify that Hannah's going through something very difficult, just like you are or have been or will be. And how does she react? How does she respond? So every year they go and they make sacrifices at the temple, and that's where we pick it up. 1 Samuel chapter 1, verses 4 through 6. On the days Elkanah presented his sacrifice, he would give portions of the meat to Peninnah and each of her children. Verse 5, and though he loved Hannah, he would give her only one choice portion because the Lord had not given her any children. Verse 6, so Peninnah would taunt Hannah and make fun of her because the Lord had kept her from having children. Year after year, it was the same darn thing. Peninnah would taunt Hannah as they went to the tabernacle. Each time, Hannah would be reduced to tears and would not even eat. I kind of wish I had that problem. But here's something I want you to think about today. Who is taunting you? It may be an ex-spouse. It may be a coworker. It may not actually be a person who's actually taunting you or making fun of you. Hannah can't have kids, which is devastating to her, but on top of it, she's getting made fun of because she can't. She's being ridiculed because. So adding insult to injury. And so who is taunting you? Who is, or what is better taunting you? Is it an addiction? Is it an anger problem? Is it a problem you have on the inside of you that you just can't shake? Is it a secret sin that you've told no one about, but it's been taunting you, saying you'll never be enough? You'll never overcome this. Or you'll never have or give enough to be forgiven for what you did. Those are voices from the enemy. And let me tell you this, you don't have to let those settle in your heart. If you let them settle in your heart, it produces an unhealthy heart. Perfect example, David and Goliath. Goliath comes out and he taunts the armies of the Lord. Scripture says he taunts them. He makes fun of them. He makes fun of their God. He makes fun of their abilities. And these capable warriors are reduced to nothing because they listen to the taunt of the enemy. Goliath yells at them insults and says they're weak. And they say, oh, I am weak. Oh, I am less than. Oh, I am unworthy. And so I'm going to shrink back. But then our hero comes into the picture, David, and he's a little boy. He doesn't even come to fight. He comes with cheese and crackers for his brothers. And yet he hears the taunting of the enemy and says, what? He says this great line, is there not a cause? He says, is there not a God on the inside of you that you and me serve? I know him personally. He helped me kill a lion and a bear when I've been taking care of my sheep. He's already on the inside of me, and this uncircumcised Philistine has nothing on me. The enemy is taunting you. They got nothing on you. And you can rise up like David and not let those words simmer and settle in your heart and say, I don't have to put up with this. I'm going to rise up. Greater is he who's in me than he who's in the world. I am worthy. I am forgiven. I am loved. I'm not less than. I am capable. You can believe these things and say these things just like David did. And it's interesting. Angie pointed this out to me last night. God calls David a man after his own How amazing is that? David had a heart after God. He had a healthy heart. He messed up. He was flawed. He wasn't perfect at all. At all. He went through hardships, but yet he had a heart after God because he didn't let those things, in part, settle deep down where he was. So, Hannah's under pressure. Let's see what comes out of Hannah's heart.
All right, so we're at the point where Hannah has been reduced to tears because of her arch nemesis taunting her. So we're going to pick it up here in verse 9. Why are you crying, Hannah? Elkanah would ask. Why aren't you eating? Why be downhearted just because you have no children? You have me. Isn't that better than having 10 sons? Sounds like something my husband would say. You have me. What else do you want?
It's the truth, though, right?
Once after a sacrificial meal at Shiloh, Hannah got up and went to pray. So what's Hannah's go-to when she's upset? She runs and she talks to God. It says in verse 10 that Hannah was deep in anguish, crying bitterly as she prayed to the Lord. I love to see her vulnerability there. She's bitter. She's upset. And I think sometimes we think we can't come to God because we're bitter or we're upset. And he wants these perfect little prayers and wants us to never question and never be upset and never wonder. And I love how it's just raw. And she's upset. Someone else at this feast might have just thrown the peas, but she doesn't. She gets up and she goes and she talks to God in the middle of the storm. So number one, a healthy heart goes to Jesus. Hannah chose to talk to the only one who could change her situation. And I think that's key in the story because it's so easy in the middle of our storms, in the middle of our trials, to run to everybody around us. And they can't change our situation. God gives us people, and it's great to have people pray for us, but he's the only one that can change our situation. When Ben and I were first married, I was headed to the doctor, and I was nervous about, we'd found some things, and I was nervous about what the doctor was going to say and the report I was going to get from him, but we're not really fearful about a lot. So I was like, I'm fine. So I'm on the way to the doctor, and I start to panic. I'm like, okay. I call him. I said, I changed my mind. I want you to come to the doctor with me and be there when he tells me what's going on. And he's like, well, I can't now. I have stuff planned. I'm busy. I'm so sorry. I said, that's okay. I'll call my mom. So I call my mom, and I'm Little Miss Independent, so I don't ever need anybody. And so I call my mom, and she's busy, which was just a God thing for me. But I literally was not myself. The enemy was probably just attacking me and telling me I was going to hear all my worst fears. And so I'm like, okay, well, what friend am I going to call? Because I'm not going to the doctor by myself anymore. I need someone to be there when I get this bad news. And it was like I just heard on the inside of my heart, you have what you need. I'm with you, and I'm the only one that can change the outcome of this appointment. Your husband cannot change the outcome. You can support and say, we got you. Your mom cannot change the outcome. No friend can change the outcome. All you need is me, and you have me. And I had this amazing peace on the inside of me as I walked in there by myself and just knew God's got me. I'm going to hold on to his word, and I know that he has me. And so, number one, I love how Hannah chooses to talk to the only one who can change her situation.
That's good. So here's what she does when she goes to Jesus. Verse 11, this is what she prays. She made this vow, O Lord of heaven's armies, if you will look upon my sorrow and answer my prayer and give me a son, then I will give him back to you. He will be yours for his entire lifetime. And as a sign that he has been dedicated to the Lord, his hair will never be cut. That prayer is, I like this word, audacious. That is an incredibly bold prayer. Think about what you've been asking God for. What you've been seeking God for. What dream you have on the inside of you. For you to say, God, thank you that you're going to give that to me, and then I'm just going to give it back to you. I don't even want it. I want you. I want the relationship with you is more important. A healthy heart says, everything I have is yours. Healthy heart says, everything I have is yours. Now, let's be honest. That's a whole lot easier said than it is done. But how many of us are holding on so tight to our job? This is all I have. When you know deep down, God's challenging you to step out and do something new or go for the promotion. But you've been listening to those voices that say, you're not qualified. Or You're holding on so tight to your kids. You're trying to control every move they make. You're trying to make them wear helmets to school. You're trying to make sure that they never get a cold, you're trying to control them. And God's saying, will you trust me with your kids? Or you're holding so tight to a relationship at work. Or if you're not married, you're holding on so tight to a relationship that you know is not right. And God says, let go, I have better for you. If you would let go of it. Or the desire to be married above all else, that's what's going to fix all your problems. And when God says, just trust me, I'll bring it to you at the right time. Or you're holding on too tight to your finances. God's been challenging you to give more to him, and you're just holding on tight. But God can't bless what you're not willing to let go of. And say, God, I'm going to trust you wholeheartedly with it. What are you holding on to so tight? Because a healthy heart says, everything I have is yours. And this theme is apparent all through Scripture. All through Scripture. And it even starts in Genesis. Chapter 22, Abraham and Isaac. Remember this story that Abraham is the father of many nations. He's made this promise, yet he's too old, doesn't have any kids. So God, through a series of events, gives him and Sarah this amazing gift in Isaac. And Abraham's not a perfect guy. He makes some mistakes, does some dumb stuff, but God still blesses him and says, you're going to be the father of many nations. Here's the blessing. Gives him Isaac. Years go by. And then God tests Abraham. How many of you in school like tests? Cool, nobody's hand raised because I was going to ridicule you. Just joking. So I don't like tests, especially in life. But here's what a test does. A test proves that it's not just knowledge, it's action. And you're willing to actually do what you know. Knowing the truth is one thing, but actually being able to live the truth is another. Under stress, under fire. And so God tells Abraham, go sacrifice your son. And as far as Abraham knows, he's going to have to do it. There's no argument recorded. Abraham goes to the mountain and gets ready to sacrifice Isaac. And at the last second, God says, you don't have to, but I know you're willing. He's willing to give up the promise, give up the dream, because he trusts God enough to say, I know you'll come through. I know you'll perform good on your promise. I believe what you say. Everything I have and everything I am is yours. Do we go to God when we need him, or is he our Lord and has to tell us sometimes the hard thing that we need to give up or give back? Angie and I, when we were first married about 15 years ago, we were in ministry for about 4 years, and we've known since before we were married, we wanted to be in ministry together, and we wanted to do it together. And we were youth pastors, and our youth ministry was doing really well. It was growing. Dalton back there was a part of it. Rage Youth Ministries. I mean, we had conferences. There was 500 plus kids there, and our youth ministry was growing, and everything was going great. But we just knew deep down that it was not the healthiest situation for us at that time. And we made a decision to take a step back and remove ourselves from ministry and move to Seattle and just get healthy and just be us and just kind of move away from family and establish who we were. And we knew we needed to have healthy hearts. And we're so thankful for Barb and Carrie in our lives. And they would say to us, if you're supposed to be in ministry, God will bring it at the right time. And so for us, it was a big deal at the time for us walking away from our dream that we thought, this is it. This is all God will ever give us. This is why would we leave where we think we're supposed to be the rest of our lives? But we valued, I'd say my wife actually encouraged me, she valued a healthy heart, a healthy family. And it was the right decision for us to get healthy, for our marriage to get healthy, for her to get healthy, for me to get healthy before. Why would we want to enter something unhealthy and damage a bunch of people, especially in ministry? Why would we've done enough damage on our own. Why would we want to continue that? And there may be something that you say, if I take a step back, I'll never get it back. But I know I need to. God says, if you would trust me, I'll give you even more. And and God has done exceedingly abundantly above all that we could ask or think here at Northbridge. We could have never dreamed. And if we would have stayed in ministry and just pushed ahead, we'd be divorced. I believe it with all my heart. We wouldn't be married. We wouldn't be in ministry because it wasn't a healthy situation. But God said, if you give it back to me, I'll bless it. That's what he does with Abraham. And that's what he does with Hannah. And let's be honest, it's not always easy. Probably never is easy for you to give back. Sometimes when you first start to tithe, you first start to give your finances, it's tough. And your spouse has to rip it out of your hands and give it. And I get that. I get that. And it's the same thing for Hannah. Spoiler alert, okay? She has a kid, and later she actually does give him back to God. And in verse 23, her husband recognizes the hard choice. Verse 23, Elkanah agreed and said, whatever you think is best. She's going to give her son back to God. And he says, stay here for now. And listen to this. May the Lord help you keep your promise. Those words just ring true that says, I get how hard this is. And sister, let God help you, because it's going to be hard to give up that dream. And you know what? God blesses her. She has more children. Yeah. She has more kids because God says, you give me the first, I will bless. Don't hold so tight, but let me bless what's in your hands. A healthy heart says, God, everything I have is yours.
That's good. So Hannah's praying and asking the Lord for a child. It says, as she was praying to the Lord, Eli was watching her. Seeing her lips moving but hearing no sound, he thought she had been drinking. Must you come here drunk, he demanded. Throw away your wine. Oh, no, sir, she replied. I haven't been drinking wine or anything stronger, but I'm very discouraged, and I was pouring out my heart to the Lord. Don't think I'm a wicked woman, for I have been praying out of great anguish and sorrow. In that case, Eli said, go in peace, and may the God of Israel grant the request you have asked him. Oh, thank you, sir, she exclaimed, and she went back and began to eat again, and she was no longer sad. Number 3, a healthy heart takes him at his word and believes it's going to be done. So many times we hear his word and we're okay, and we're like, okay, yeah. And then the storm comes and we're like, yeah, nope, I'm out. And we jump ship and we don't hold on to his word in the middle of the storm. She didn't have a baby yet. She could have said, well, they don't have a baby yet. She doesn't have a baby yet. What if it doesn't happen? What's my guarantee? But she didn't. She took him at his word. She went back, she ate, and she was no longer sad. Yeah. I love that she chose to take him at his word. A great example of this in the New Testament, Paul is on his way to Italy, and he's going to stand trial before Caesar, and he's with a bunch of prisoners, and he's going through an actual storm. He's in a boat, and there's a storm, and everyone thinks they're going to die, and he's able to say, no, don't worry. Take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though this ship will go down. He's talking about the angel of the Lord had appeared to him the night before and said, yep, the ship's going to sink, but I'm going to save all of you. Well, the passengers are, oh, good. And then the storm keeps raging, right? It says they can't see the sun for days on end. And it says come day 14 of them having no food, Paul has to remind them, take courage. None of you will lose your lives, even though this ship will go down. Take courage, for I believe God that it will be just as he said. Yeah. And it says, once again, they were encouraged because Paul just took him at his word. So he wasn't sick. He wasn't not eating. He just knew he got to walk in joy. He got to walk in peace because he took God at his word. It's when we don't take God at his word that we live stressed. We live upset. We live looking at our problems, and then life's not fun anymore. We were at Yellowstone, and there's always something to be afraid of. Let me tell you, the enemy's always trying to get us to be afraid of whatever. Well, at Yellowstone, it's bears. So we get to Yellowstone, and luckily we're with Dad, who's a jokester, and it said only one bear, on average, one person gets eaten by a bear a year. And Dad's like, well, that person got eaten last week, so we don't have anything to worry about. Everywhere we went, everyone was talking to us about a bear attack, that it had just happened. And a lady had been on a run, and there was a mom and cubs, and she got eaten. And so I was like, oh, wow, I didn't really think this was a huge thing. And so everywhere we go, they keep telling us that, you got to be careful. You have to have bear spray because a woman just got eaten. So then we go on a hike, and they drop us off on a boat, and we go hiking, and these kids come running down the hill, and they're like, did you see the bear? Did you see the bear? And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, right. You guys are joking. And they go, we were way up high, and we saw it. It's right down here where you guys are. And I'm thinking, really? So I'm thinking, well, that's kind of cool. I want to see a bear. So I'm like, Bodie, don't get so far ahead. He's like a mile ahead of us. And so we keep walking, and then the parents come down. Did you guys see the bear? It's right down here. We saw it when we were way up there. And I'm like, oh, this is real cool. Lexi, hold my hand. And so we're going, and all of a sudden this lady says, have you seen my kids? And I'm thinking, that's not very smart. And she goes, there was 3 of them. And I thought, well, I saw 2 of them. I didn't see 3 of them. So then we get to the campground. We never see the bear. We're looking in our pictures. I'm like, it was probably like right behind us in one of these pictures, because they're all like, it was right here. We just saw it. So we get to our campground and they say, hey, there was just a bear here. Just so you know, you need to be careful. There was just a bear here. They come out with their little, all their information of what to do to avoid bears. First thing, number 1, Bodhi and Lexi are like, can you read this to us? I'm like, okay. Number 1, don't ever run from a bear. I'm like, got it? We never run. They're like, okay. Number 2, if the bear hasn't seen you, quickly and quietly back away and just get out of eye line. Number 3, don't leave coolers out. They're like, wait a second, what happens if the bear did see you? So I'm like skimming down real quick, nothing about that. I'm like, apparently he eats you, because they don't put that in there. If the bear sees you, what to do. They don't say. So apparently he'll eat you, as they're both looking at me with these huge eyes. And I said, but not you. I said, you're safe. Remember, Jesus protects us. And they get up and walk away. And we don't go on hikes and leave them by themselves. We don't send them to the bathroom at night by themselves. We're not idiots. But we don't live in fear, right? We choose to take God at his word. We could have had no fun on that vacation, because all they did was talk about the bears that are out there, and they're eating people, and they were just right here, and they're just here, and they're in your campsite. They're everywhere. We could have hidden our RV and had no fun. But we choose to take God at his word and refuse to live life in fear. And we refuse to raise children who are fearful of everything. So I read it, I made the joke, and then I said, but not you. You're fine. God will protect you. Well, we could have said, well, that lady got eaten, right? Hannah could have said, well, she hasn't had a baby yet. And that's what we tend to do in the middle of the storm, is instead of just taking him at his word, we say, well, what about? And we want all the unknowns, all the questions answered. What about this? What about that, Lord? So the third thing is a healthy heart takes him at his word and believes it will be done. We sang a song this morning that I didn't know we were going to sing. Good job. Turn your eyes upon Jesus. And he knew we were going to talk about this today. And I love the song. Now you all know it. Because it talks about how when we look to Jesus, the things on earth will grow strangely dim, right? They get smaller when we have our eyes focused on Jesus. I was with my friend a couple days ago. She had surgery and hasn't been here for about a month and a half. And I'd been missing her and thought, I'm going to go pray for her and chat with her. And she's just been going through the ringer. She had surgery, and then thing after thing after thing has been happening. And she was just, what I heard, feeling very discouraged. And I thought, well, I'm going to go chat with her, and I'm going to pray for her. And I get there, and we got to sit and talk for an hour or two. And the things that she had been through in life, she's just full of life. I've always been drawn to her because she's so full of life. She's always so positive. She's always looking at the good. And I'm like, man, there needs to be more people like you in the world, right? We're the light of the world. We're the salt of the world, and the world needs us. And even as Christians, just get so sour sometimes, and it's hard to be around people that are negative because this world is negative. But not her. She's always positive. She's always got a good outlook on life. And I'm thinking, she's probably had this great life. Well, she starts to talk about all the wonderful things about life, and then tragedy. And then just goes on. Wonderful things of life. I'm thinking, hang on, you just said you lost your son. He's no longer here. And she's like, sometimes people die. He was here for a reason. He was an adult. I said, did he have kids? Did he have a wife? Yeah. They're doing great. And she just kept going. And after that, I read this book, 50 Days of Heaven, and it just changed my thinking. And I'm crying as I'm telling Ben my experience with her. And I said it was kind of like she just got it. That earth life is like this. But heaven is for eternity. I said it was like it didn't even faze her. And I saw all this joy and light that poured out of her. And I'm just sitting there looking at her, asking her question after question after question, and then all this good stuff. And then my husband died 4 years ago. I'm like, what? And how life's just been so great. And no negativity, all the good about it. And I'm like, wow, I need to learn from you. Because when we don't turn our eyes to Jesus, the things of this earth don't go strangely dim. When we focus our eyes on the things of this world, it's overwhelming. We get heavy hearts. we get to this point where we're like, I don't know if I can go another day. And I said that to her. I said, wow. I said, I was just with another woman a couple weeks ago who lost her husband. She doesn't even want to live anymore. And I think that's how I'd feel, like that's reality. And so in looking at her, I said there was just so much wisdom, and it was like she had grasped something that I don't think I've ever thought of. I said, and it made me sit there and think. It was like I was having this revelation as she was talking of, wow, God has so much more for me than I can even dream of. And I don't think we'll even know until we're in heaven just how much he has for us. But hearing her talk and hearing her be so heavenly minded instead of earthly minded, man, she sucks life out of every day. She's amazing. She doesn't ever stop. She loves life. She wants to be healthy. She wants to live long. It's not like she's like, they're in heaven and I can't wait to get there. No, she wanted to suck every ounce out of every day. But she just knew they lived their purpose. They did what they were here to do. And life goes on, and God still has a good life plan for me, and life has still been good for me. And as she shared that, I was just like, wow, that is so good to get things into perspective on the good future that God has for us. And I likened that story to her. I said, when you say that, I don't know if you were there when we shared about a man talking about likening that to his kid, and how when you tickle them and they start screaming and belly laughing and they're so happy. He says, I'm doing that to my daughter, and I'm thinking, this is what Jesus wants for me. I love seeing my daughter without a care in the world, having this light heart that can just belly laugh because she doesn't have any worries. She doesn't have any fears. She trusts dad. She trusts mom. She knows that we've got her. And that's how God feels about us. Like, take all those cares away, give them to him. And when he sees us enjoying life and being able to just have these belly laughs, he's like, they're trusting me. They've given it to me. They're letting me take care of that, and they're enjoying this life that I've blessed them with. And it's just such an encouragement when we put our eyes on Jesus. That's when we put ourselves in a place of Jesus doing miracles. He's like, you give it to me, and I can do something with it. If you want to hold on to it, good luck, right? But you give it to me, and I'll do something with it. So here we go. We get to see God work the miracle. It says, and in due time, she gave birth to a son, and she named him Samuel, for she said, I asked the Lord for him. The name Samuel means God has heard. And when she weaned the child, Hannah took him to the tabernacle in Shiloh. She gives him to Eli and tells him, I asked the Lord to give me this boy, and he granted my request. Now I'm giving him to the Lord, and he will belong to the Lord his whole life. And they worshiped the Lord there. In chapter 2, we hear her pray, and such a special prayer. She gives God all the glory. Hannah prayed, my heart rejoices in the Lord. The Lord has made me strong. Now I have an answer for my enemies. I rejoice because you rescued me. No one is holy like the Lord. There is no one beside you. There is no rock like our God. Our fourth point today is a healthy heart rejoices in the Lord. When our promise comes, it's so easy to be like, yeah, I held strong. I ran from the bear. I knew all the things. I, right? Like a healthy heart knows that that's an opportunity to show the world how good God is. Look what God did for me. Like some of our recovery people, they have been through hell on earth. And you talk to them, and they take every opportunity. I always think, I don't want to push God down people's throat. I don't want to. They take every opportunity, and they say constantly, look what God did. Look what he did. This is where I was, but this is where I am now, and it's all because of God. It was not me. And I always sit there and watch them and think, you guys don't care about pushing God down people's throat, because they've lived hell on earth, and they know what it was like before, and now they know what it's like with God, and they want everyone to know that. So they have no fear, and they rejoice in the Lord with everything he gives them. And I just think, man, that is so encouraging, because that's hard to do sometimes. That's hard to be like, that was God. You realize that, don't you? I'm alive and didn't get eaten by a bear because of God, right? Not because I was smart, because of God. So a healthy heart rejoices in the Lord when he gives us his promises.
That's good. Would you bow your heads? I want to pray with you.